They have one son, right? And who's grown. They live in this area. And I'm going to let her fill in whatever else she feels like would be good, but you can also read her bio that will tell you more. We've known each other now for a good while, maybe 10 plus years. Yeah. So yeah, we've hung out together a little bit. So welcome and thank you very much.
Put this on.
Make sure more people can hear you. Can you hear me? Good. I think I'm fine here. Wow, I looked at your schedule, and it's brutal. So thank you for even being here after dinner. I get to do the middle session of the partnership facilitator sessions, and there are 9. If you've looked kind of on the whole outline, we normally, as International Partnering Associates, IPA, which follows this beginning Monday night, we normally do this kind of workshop over about a week period. So we've been asked to kind of crunch it in to about 9 sessions. So you've had 4, I'm the 5th, and you'll get 4 more. So I'm kind of right in the middle, and we've moved from an overall, I think, discussion last night of what partnering or partnership is. And this morning, Jose, one of my colleagues from Guatemala, but who is also living here nearby in Waxahachie. That's how you say the funny spelling, Waxahachie. And then you'll also get to meet several others tomorrow and on the following day, because they lend a different perspective, I think, than just women or men or certain denominations and nationalities. So it's great to be part of that fellowship of associates, and good to be here with you tonight. So thanks for asking me, Liz. I'll be talking about the subject of skills in facilitating a partnership. And this afternoon, Timo, when I was here scribing for him, talked about some of the roles, some of the skills, and then some of the challenges. What among that discussion stood out to you as maybe an aha moment, like I'd never thought about partnering or facilitating in that way before? What is an aha moment you can share with the larger group, something you'll take with you? Because there's so many things you're hearing and learning and discovering these 3 days, but what will you take with you from some of, if not the session before dinner, then maybe even this morning or last night, something about partnering?
It's not an easy process.
Not easy.
And it does take time.
It takes time. You said the magic word too, process, or whatever it takes in the journey. You may, and I'm sure Jose talked to you about, you may be at the exploring, that middle part of supposedly the journey, but then you may have to go back to the very beginning again and awaken. My experience with partnering has been with a small people group in the country of Iran, and then a larger country network and partnership that I helped birth and form within all of the ministries that focus on the country of Iran. And then even a North American kind of partnership that gathers annually to minister to the peoples of Iran. So that's been my background in partnering and my role in as a facilitator, and I found it very true. It's a process. It's a journey. It's never over. It takes time. What else? Good answer so far. What else?
When you hit the wall and trying to build together, when you hit the wall. When
Not if.
You hit the wall.
When.
Let God show up.
I like that. When you hit the wall, let God show up. Yeah. Not an if, but a when. You will. Yes?
And a different one. There should be a gracious get out of jail card. So there can be a gracious out of a partnership and not just out for life.
Very good. Very good. You heard this? Okay, a get out of the partnership card. Very good. It may not be a commitment for life. And you've heard different ways to describe partnerships. I think you've heard networks, and you've heard alliances, and you've heard movements, and a consultation. But partnering is more than just the meeting. It's throughout the year. And a really good partnership will last continually if you have a good facilitator. So let's talk more about the facilitator. And that is a very difficult role for one person to play. Although you could be Superman and receive all kinds of gifts from the Lord and be able to do that, it's very difficult to find someone that can exhibit all of those skills and roles that you wrote down and avoid those challenges. I even added a few more that begin with the letter C. So Lisa and some of you that are nearby, could you read those out, those C's, which I would call roles or responsibilities of a facilitator?
Champion, leader, coordinator, communicator, and
Champion, convener, coordinator, communicator, connector. Now of those, some of you may be very good at one or two. Some of you may be very good at all of them. But it takes all those roles to really keep the partnering effort going, or the partnership, if you want to call it that. Sometimes in older days of forming partnerships, and some of your organizations may do this, and mission organizations differ too in structure and bureaucratic guidelines. But some wanted a letter of agreement. In the partnerships that I've worked with in Iran, we've signed security agreements, which makes sense, that you won't disclose the information that's shared or names that attended and so on. So there are some aspects that may be more important than others, but those are what I would still call roles or responsibilities. Which does lap into the skills, and that's what the title I'm giving to this session is, Skills in Facilitating a Partnership, which focuses more on what we do. So what we do. And by the end of, I think, about 30 minutes here, I hope not to go too much more than that, I want you to be able to recognize that a facilitator or a facilitating team must have, or they must develop, certain kinds of skills. If they don't have them, or someone on the team does not have them, then they need to be developed. If you're familiar and you want to talk more about teams, an excellent book by is Belbin. It's a British book. Let me think of his first name. Anyway, Belbin, B-E-L-B-I-N, on team roles. And he talks about the importance, you talked about sense of humor as one of the roles, of a plant is one of the roles, a plant. And a person that does the role of the plant just kind of throws out ideas all the time, you know, and you have those, you have to have those in your partnership. They may be crazy ideas, but they have to be throwing them out. So Belbin, Meredith Belbin is his name, on team roles. It may interest you. What I would talk about tonight are some of the C's that we emphasize over the entire week when we normally do this training. And I think some of this will translate maybe into Spanish. I'm not sure about Portuguese, but it may not translate to your mother tongue. But in English, we look a lot at competence. We want someone in that facilitator role who's competent, somewhat a person who is capable and agreeing to occupy that role. Capacity. It takes a lot of time and effort for a person to act in that role of facilitator. And so capacity is necessary. Another C we think of, confidence. Now I'm not talking about, we were talking at dinner about Texans being quite arrogant, and I can say that as a native Texan. See, I throw that in, that's the arrogance of we Texans. And we kind of think we're our own state instead of, you know, part of the United States. And Americans from North America, we think we're the only Americans when there are Central Americans and South Americans and Canadians and others in America. You know, it doesn't make sense. So what I was getting at is that sometimes we can be overly confident, but a facilitator has to be at least poised and somewhat confident in her or his role, self-assured. And then finally, commitment. It may be fine for one of the partners to take a get out of jail free and leave, but as a facilitator, if you're starting something, you may not necessarily stay with it long. You could, but we found in the Iranian partnership example, and I'm giving that because that's my context, it was not good necessarily to have an Iranian be a facilitator, because the other Iranians then, you know, why is that person? And there was some distrust and lack of, there was a lot of conflict. Let me just say I've been through it all. But it's difficult to have someone that can be objective. So we actually chose a person from Sweden. I mean, you know, powerless, whatever you want to say. But a person from Sweden has generally been our facilitator or part of the facilitating team since the very beginning. And somewhat objective, as I would say, because that was another role that you played. But on the final day, when we're together in these partnering workshops and exploring the idea of partnering, we add another C. So I'm going to tell a story, and as I tell this story, which was in SIM Now, their magazine about a missionary, listen to what you think might be another C we can add, because we've missed this C so far. This is a story about a Zambian missionary named Danny Mushali. And he's from the evangelical church in Zambia and was returning home after several days of being out in the countryside. And so his dilapidated Land Rover finally arrived at the base, and a group of people were there to meet him. But as he arrived, he noticed that someone had jumped up on the top of his Land Rover and pushed one of the bags down, and someone on the other side of the Land Rover had taken it and run off before he could even get around to the other side. Now, a few days later, Denny, the man with the Land Rover that had come back home, told a friend about what had happened, and he described some of the stolen items. You know, it's my favorite shirt, so on. And the man he was describing it to said, I think I bought that shirt in a nearby market. It actually wasn't that nearby. It took about 10 or 12 days to get to that market. But the man and Denny went to the market, and they found the man who he had bought the shirt from, and they ended up arresting the man. He ended up being tried and was found guilty, but he couldn't serve where the man lived in that market. He had to return to the place that was stolen and serve out his term. So he returned to the city where Denny lived and was put into jail then. But this was a new problem because, as in many places, the prisoners are not fed except by the family or those nearby, and there was no one nearby. So Denny and his church fed this prisoner because there were no relatives in the area. And to the surprise of the inmates, the food was brought into this prisoner every day, day after day. And so the inmates asked the man who stole the clothing and all, who's looking after you since you have no family? And the man said, the very man I robbed. He and the people from his church are feeding me. The other inmates were, well, why would he do such a thing? And the man replied, he is a man of God. And from what I have learned, I will steal no more. So a great story, praise God. Now we can't say that there was salvation involved, but what an example that was. So what inspires you about that story? True story of a missionary in Zambia. Compassion. It's a good C, not the right one, but it's a good C, okay? Compassion. Excellent, excellent. It's not the one I'm looking for, but it's oh, creep? Good, you're still awake tonight. Oh, Christ-like. Another good one, another C, Christ-like. Caring. Okay, I thought I was going to hear that word. Caring. Caring. Okay, but that's not quite it. Care. Courageous is not quite it. What was his overall character? Okay, his overall demeanor, his character, that aspect of reflecting Christ, and like was shared, I think, in the devotional this morning, and then also the heart of God in Philippians, and in humbling yourself as a servant, all of that would be part of the character. So that's the C I'm looking for. Why don't you, since you're at the table you are at, instead of moving around right now, you discuss quickly among yourselves, 4, 3, whatever, what kind of person you would like working in a partnering kind of way. What kind of person would you like? What character of a person would you like? Maybe even thinking of someone that you have worked with before. But what kind of character qualities would you like in the people you're partnering with? So just share briefly among the table. So call some of those out to me. You can, if you like the idea of someone else, just give it before he or she does. Come on. Integrity. Integrity. I heard that one. Humble. Humility. I'm the most humble person I know. Haven't you heard that before? No. What else?
Obedience.
Whoa. Flexibility is a very needed skill. Yes?
She say obedience.
Obedience. Very good. I think you've been focusing on that with your Discovery Bible studies, of not just hearing it, but doing it. Yeah, being obedient. What else?
Self-control.
Got some fruits of the Spirit there. And we could go on, but the idea is that the person is completely of the kingdom of God, not of the kingdom of darkness. We have a person that's following God. Now think of a person, and if you can, a real person in your life that has some of these qualities and that you've enjoyed partnering with. It's gone well, perhaps. It may not have gone well, but think of someone, just think, and if you can't think of a particular person in your own life, think of a biblical character. You know, one of the sons of encouragement like Barnabas or maybe Jonathan, but think of a character or a person in particular, one person, okay? Get that person in your mind. So now share that with just the person next to you, just the person in pairs. Share with each other the name of the person or the person and why that person was such a good example of these qualities. You know, what did they do? You can explain it in more detail. But what did they do or what made their actions so admirable? But share with the person next to you in pairs.
I don't like about the margins, they're completely controlling, and they only see their own point of view, and they have no room to express, and they really want to be, but I can't work with like that. Yeah.
This is always the hard part, is stopping you, because I'm hearing such good conversation. Did each of you get to share a little bit then? I want to make sure everyone had a chance to kind of share. You're in the process. Some of you may have come up with other qualities that we've so other qualities that we have not yet mentioned may have been mentioned. What we find with facilitators, and this would be true with really any person who has gone through challenges or struggles, some of what a facilitator is asked to do is sometimes based on the qualities he or she has developed through a crisis. You know, we would not ask God to give us trouble, but we know trouble comes, and when it comes, then we are to stand up against it, and it refines us. And so I think we don't ask for it, but we know that we can be refined into certain qualities that God wants of us as we facilitate a partnership or are part of the team that facilitates partnerships. So I would like you again, with the same pair or the same triplet, the three of you that were working, to maybe share some of the things that you, and this is putting you in a vulnerable spot, which is one of the comments I heard, is share a little bit about one of the qualities that you see listed, or some kind of kingdom quality you know that you need to develop. It's not that you aren't a pastoral type of person. Do you need to be? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But perhaps God has poked you a little bit on, this is something I need to work on. So be a little vulnerable, if you will, with your partner and share that. And then tonight I would like to just close this time then with the two of you or the three of you praying, and in about 5 minutes or so we'll stop and go into the next session. So any question about what I'm asking you to do? Too vulnerable yet? You're beginning to know each other and care about each other, I can tell. Okay, so share with your partner and then pray, and we'll be closing this session.